Hello again, good people. So at this point, you've done your first draft and you're moving on to editing for your second draft. Now, what is our main goal in the second draft? It's really to make sure that our story or our narrative or explanation of something makes sense, that it flows, and that there aren't really any major gaps in information. When I gave my example in the previous assignment, I did a little bit of light editing as I did that, and I kind of noted like where are some points that I need to expand upon. So I took a bit of a break between that writing and the writing I'm doing currently, and I came back to it trying to read it as someone who didn't write it. It's a bit of a trick, but you want to take that step back, separate yourself from your own writing, and read it as if you were coming to it knowing nothing about the subject. So as I'm reading this piece of writing I did, my draft one, I'm thinking, what questions do I have, about this subject? And it can be really challenging because for me, like the subject talking about climbing, my sport, my hobby, is something I know a lot about. So it can be difficult to step back from that and try to kind of forget what I know. So as I read, I noticed a few things that I wanted to change. The first of those is that first sentence says my passion for life is rock climbing. There's a saying that goes, show, don't tell, in writing, which means that it's much stronger to like illustrate an emotion or an idea rather than just coming out and saying it outright. So instead of saying my passion in life is for rock climbing, which is very much a tell kind of statement, I'm asking myself, how can I show that to the reader? I have here something that I wrote as an edit, and I want to kind of go through how I got to this right. So what I ended up with was saying, a love for something does not happen out of nowhere, but is the result of an evolving relationship. Over many years, my relationship with climbing has challenged me to rise up to its demands. It has become an enriching feature of my life, and for that reason I consider it my passion. While it is demanding, it also gives me time to appreciate nature and to connect with like-minded friends. When I go climbing, I have the chance to step outside of my normal life and into a world of risk, excitement, celebration, and peace. All of these aspects and more have made climbing something I can't get enough of. So compare and contrast that to the original, which says my passion for life is rock climbing. Rock climbing provides me with the chance to challenge myself in nature and to connect with like-minded friends. When I go climbing, I have the chance to step outside of my normal life and into a world of risk, excitement, celebration, and peace in nature. All of these aspects and more have made climbing something that I can't get enough of. So straight away, something I'm noticing here is that I have a bit of repetition in my original paragraph. I say nature a few times. I say gives me a chance to a few times. And I really don't go into much elaboration about that. So for flow and readability, I'm thinking, what are some repetitious words I can get rid of? Words or phrases, right? I'm thinking, where are some gaps in information that I can fill to make this more enticing for a reader? So you'll notice I did that in this revision. I got rid of some of those words that were repetitious. I filled in gaps like what I think makes something passionate for somebody, and that is my attempt to make this more relatable to an audience that doesn't really care all that much about my particular passion. But if I say, hey, this is what I think makes something meaningful to somebody, I think people can relate to that, and so it might make them more engaged in what I have to say. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second paragraph and try to give you a live demonstration of what this editing process looks like for a second draft. again, just kind of thinking about readability, flow. I'm not super concerned about, I guess, punctuation and grammar and things. Although I have like a fairly good mastery of those things, just given my experience level. So in something this short, I'm not going to be making a whole lot of grammar mistakes. So that's something I can leave to the side for now. And I actually encourage you all to do that too, and simply focus on what feels right for the flow and the readability of the story. I think that'll get you a long way. Now, just reading this second paragraph as an outsider, I'm going to read it aloud to myself. The challenges in rock climbing take me outside of my comfort zone and afford me the opportunity to enhance my mind and body. When I first began climbing, every mountain and rock face seemed larger than life. As I progressed through difficulty levels, I noticed that many routes that once seemed impossible were now within my ability. Through grit and determination, I learned to be open about my potential. Yeah, there's something that I'm not a huge fan of in this paragraph. I'm having a hard time putting my finger on it, but it's going to become clear to me. So I'm going to look up at that first paragraph and say, okay, what am I saying there? I'm talking about passion. I'm talking about enriching features. I'm talking about it being demanding, and then appreciating nature, friends, and what have you, right? So then, and I do talk about challenge up there, but I actually don't know that that's where I want to go initially. So maybe I'm going to talk about my main sort of focus on that first paragraph, which is all like the appreciation bit and maybe the relationship piece. So relationships usually have a start. So I'm actually going to start this paragraph off with the second sentence. And I'm going to move this first sentence kind of to the bottom. And I'm going to just make a separate paragraph. I'm going to keep that aside. It's not a terrible sentence at all, but maybe it'll come into use later on. So when I first began climbing, every mountain and rock face seemed larger than life. Well, what does that mean? Why did it seem larger than life? Well, I grew up in a very flat place, so maybe that's something I want to put in, kind of my background. But I don't want to say like I'm from Florida and so it's very flat, and that's why, maybe I can illustrate that a little bit more than telling it. So when I first began climbing, a mountain was something that yeah, that's fine. I'd never seen before, and every rock face, so there's a repetition there, seemed larger than life. Okay. Do I want to say more about that? Yeah, I probably do. I want to say something about how enticing that was. Like why seeing towering cliffs gave me a thrill, unlike anything I was used to. Okay. Now I'm just going to write down a few words because I feel like this is a good thought, but challenges, maybe steep cliff, ever steeper cliffs. Wilder. So those are some strong words: steep, wild. right? Throwing myself. I kind of like the imagery there. As I progressed through difficulty levels, I noticed that many routes that I'm going to take this back to that relationship piece and say, as my relationship deepened over time, I was able to look back and notice how many routes that once seemed, I'm going to say, out of reach, we're now within my ability. Through grit, passion, and determination, I learned through, you know what, I'm going to say through this reflection, through this ongoing reflection, I learned how adaptable I think that's fine for the purpose of this video. So I'm going to read the first draft again, and then I'm going to read the second draft, and I'm going to see how those two compare. The challenges in rock climbing take me outside of my comfort zone and afford me the opportunity to enhance my mind and body. When I first began climbing, every mountain and rock face seemed larger than life. As I progressed through difficulty levels, I noticed that many routes that once seemed impossible were now within my ability. Through grit and determination, I learned to be open about my potential. Okay. Second draft. When I first began climbing, a mountain was something that I'd never seen before, and every rock face seemed larger than life. Seeing towering cliffs gave me a thrill unlike anything I was used to. Oh, I already see that I use the word see or seeing a lot, so I'm just actually going to get rid of that and just say, use a more active tone. Towering cliffs gave me a thrill unlike anything I was used to. And now I made the rock the subject there instead of myself. I began throwing myself at ever steeper and wilder cliffs. See, I use cliffs again. I'll say walls. As my relationship deepened over time, I was able to look back and notice how many routes, notice that many routes that once seemed out of reach were now within my ability. Through this ongoing reflection, I learned how adaptable I could be and to be open about my potential. So I think this is a much stronger paragraph than my first draft. I think I will probably be able to improve upon it in my third draft, but I've definitely added a lot of detail. I've added some more powerful imagery. I've gotten rid of some repetition and found replacement words for weaker phrases or words. And as I read, I just made some more corrections that I noticed. And that's really kind of going to be your mission through this second draft, is to engage with the writing, ask those questions that a reader would ask about your writing, and be curious. You know, you're kind of saying like, oh, ooh, tell me more about this thing. You know, oh, I wonder what they mean by this. You can definitely take that outside perspective on your own writing, and it'll help you to kind of get at what's hiding, you know, in here. I hope one of the things that you saw was that it started off a little rough for me, but as I began writing, my creative juices started to flow and I got into kind of the rhythm of things. And that will happen for you, so just stick it out there in the first, you know, few minutes of your work, and it's going to pay off. I hope this was informative for you, helpful for you. And again, any questions, you can direct those right to your ELA teacher. Good luck editing.